College football is all about tradition. The bands, the sunsets at the Rose Bowl, the silver helmets with Buckeye stickers, and even sayings like Hotty Toddy or Sko Ducks. But what happens when a team breaks the mold? They throw a wrinkle in that tradition. When a team that isn't supposed to be at the table pulls up a chair. Enter the Indiana Hoosiers, who are ranked number 1 for the first time in school history and the favorites to win the national championship. However, they aren't the only team looking to claim glory. 11 others are going to put everything on the line with the ultimate goal of winning the national championship. We're going to cover all 12 of those teams today, so stick around for the college football playoff edition of the Toss-Up. Welcome into the Toss-Up. I'm your host this evening, Jet Garrett. Alongside me, 3 college football experts here at Indiana University, Brooks White, Ryan Canfield, and Julian Prescott. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me here today. I'm really excited. Loaded college football playoff slate. I want to start right here with you, Brooks, because it's happening here in Bloomington this season. It happened last year. They go to Notre Dame and they get beat up a little bit. This year, it's different. This year, they're ranked number 1. They're Big Ten champs. What has made this Indiana football team so different?
Well, I mean, it's year 2 under Curt Cignetti. The team has gotten better all around. I mean, they proved everybody wrong, not just teams in the Big Ten, but going on the road, having a big-time win against Oregon, in my opinion, one of the best wins in all of the college football season, and then continuing that momentum. We saw against Penn State, Omar Cooper Jr., keeping that undefeated season alive, and then last weekend, seeing that win against Ohio State, 13-10. They were more physical. They played better. And if you can do that against Ohio State, the reigning national champions, they haven't lost since last year against Michigan. And this Hoosiers team, they were that dominant. And we have every right to believe that they can continue all of that momentum into the postseason.
I think you've seen moments in that Oregon game, in that Ohio State game, where they aren't as conservative as they were a season ago. I think that's one big reason is why they're winning these games. Ryan, I want to turn to you because when we did this preseason episode, you were talking about a Group of 5 team, USF. You were really high on them. While they're not in here, we've got 2 Group of 5 teams in the playoffs, Tulane and James Madison. A lot of conversation starting to stir about these Group of 5 teams. Do they belong? Do they not? I want to ask you, how do you feel about these Group of 5 teams being in the college football playoff at the end of the year?
As a massive fan of this sport and one of the biggest truthers, at least that I know, of this sport. I've been saying this past couple of weeks, this whole playoff selection process, this is the greatest sport on earth. But with that, it's also an imperfect sport. So to answer your question, yes, Group of 5 teams do belong in the playoff. But again, no Group of 5 team this year went out and earned it. You know, James Madison has a loss, Tulane, 2 losses to a team they're already playing in the playoff. So again, there's a lot of things wrong with this playoff. I think they got the teams correct, and that's also up for debate. But at the same time, to answer your question, yes. But again, there have been better G5 teams that would be more equipped for any college football playoff. I mean, you look at last year's Boise State team, you look at the 23 James Madison team. I'm incredibly biased with mentioning the 2016 Western Michigan Broncos. They would have been one of the 12 best teams that year if there was this format. So to answer your question, yes, but this year I understand why people are a little bit upset that the AQs are in place.
I would agree. I think especially when you've got, last year Alabama and Ole Miss were kind of on the bubble, but I don't really think anyone thought they belonged in. This year you've had teams like Notre Dame, Vanderbilt, BYU, Texas, and I could understand kind of how it's different this year than it was last year. Julian, I want to turn to you. When you've got this collection of teams, you're going to have some of the best players in the nation. I'm going to get Fernando Mendoza out of here. You're not allowed to name him because he is probably going to win the Heisman. Who is going to be the biggest impact player to help a team win the national championship this season?
Yeah, there's somebody you can choose from. I mean, all these teams have really great players. I think this player kind of stands out on this team, though. I'm going to go ahead and pick Dante Moore on Oregon. I think he is just so explosive. I think he kind of leads that team. They have a great placement in this tournament. They have a great 2 games. I don't look past JMU. I see them beating them by 30. I think that's a game that's easily winnable. I think they go on to play Texas Tech. And again, I think that's the first time Texas Tech's actually seen a roster kind of similar to theirs. And I think Dante Moore will just go ahead and get explosive with his receivers. Malik Benson, he's great. They've got all these guys they've put together, and this team, this roster, I'd say fits around him very, very well. And I think Dante Moore is going to make a bigger impact than a lot of guys think.
I think Texas Tech has a really, really good defense, but have they seen an offense like Oregon's this season? I mean, you've got Dante Moore, Kenyon Sadiq, and like you mentioned, Malik Benson. I want to stick with you here for a moment because I want to talk specifically about the Alabama-Oklahoma game. We saw this game, and we were talking a little bit before the show. We saw this game less than a month ago. Oklahoma goes into Alabama, picks up a 23-21 victory. This time it will be played in Oklahoma, in Norman. Do you think anything's going to be different this time around? Is it going to be the same result? What kind of read do you have on that game?
Well, there's a lot of things that go into it, and I think this game is a lot closer than people think it's going to be. It really is a toss-up because, no pun intended there, sorry. Because, again, you look at that game a couple weeks ago, and you kind of look at the Alabama offense, and they put almost double the yardage up on Oklahoma that game. So didn't come out with the win because you have to look over at the turnover margin. You take some of those turnovers out, and I think Alabama kind of squeaks out with a win there in Tuscaloosa. I think, again, we've seen time and time again in these playoff games that home field advantage matters. Home field advantage plays a huge difference, and that game is a sold-out game in Norman. It's going to be tough to play in that environment, and it's a night game. That crowd is going to be rocking. But, again, that Oklahoma defense, it's really – that's going to be the storyline of the game is whether or not Ty Simpson can get the ball going against Oklahoma's defense at home. Or not at home, sorry, in Norman. Right. Because obviously Alabama, they have not had a good rush offense. I know James coming back, but I don't know. I don't want to look past it. I think Oklahoma is going to just kind of keep up with Alabama. Their offense is good enough. Obviously, Mateer, not as good as he was before his injury, but he's going to have some time. And I think this is his time to really get healthy and compete in a game with Alabama, which I think they can win, and play Indiana in the Rose Bowl.
You mentioned how big of an advantage that having that home field is for these first-round games. So, Ryan, I want to turn to you. Which one of these first four host sites, which one of those teams has the biggest home field advantage? You mentioned in Norman, sold-out night game. Who has the biggest home field advantage?
So this is, when you think about this question, there could be a lot of different ways you could spin it. You think about Autzen, one of the known commodities that hasn't had to host a playoff game yet. That's a rocking crowd. You have these Ole Miss fans that are going to be screaming their heads off, with anger, and they're probably going to win. And then you have Norman, who also has not hosted a playoff game yet. I don't think Oklahoma has made a playoff since 19, where they lost by 50. And then this is the biggest thing that I think, with the ins and outs of this playoff, why is A&M in Miami at 11 o'clock local time? I think, and this kind of bleeds into Brooks's question, but I think we could spin this question into who has the most beatable home field advantage. And I know we talked about this away from the cameras. I think, with the sun being out in College Station, I think that, you have to see what makes college football so special, and that's the Kyle Field at night, that atmosphere. With that not being present, I think Miami has a lot easier of a shot. Not easier is not the right word.
Right.
It's a more doable shot than, and go back and watch. I encourage everybody to watch the Texas A&M Open from last year's game at Kyle Field. This not being in the playoff, not having this production, it's blasphemous, and that's disappointing. So there's a bunch of answers there. To answer your question, I think Oregon, obviously Oregon. Sure. But again, I think that's where the kickoff times was really just done incredibly dirty right there.
I kind of agree, especially when you're spacing these games out and you're waiting as long as you wait. There's no excuse for all these to not be, 5 o'clock kicking later. No reason for that. Keep going on this Texas A&M Miami game. Both of these teams beat Notre Dame, who got left out of this playoff. It's kind of the Notre Dame Bowl here. Who do you have coming out on top? Do you see a world where Miami goes on the road and comes out with a victory?
Yeah, I think playing at College Station, it's not easy to do, but Miami, they've been on a roll after their 2 losses early in the season. I like Carson Beck. I like that offense. And the defensively, I mean, Reuben Bain Jr., he's one of the better edge rushers in all of college football. He's going up against a very good Texas A&M offensive line. I think that'll be the biggest matchup that we talk about in that game. Whoever wins the line of scrimmage, I know that's a very basic answer, but I think it really does play a huge role, especially because Marcel Reed, he's a scrambling quarterback. If he isn't having a good day in the pocket, I mean, I think it really could turn ugly for the Aggies. We saw them earlier in the season having to claw out of a 30-plus point deficit against South Carolina. They were able to do it against Miami. That'll be hard to do. I think that the Hurricanes have a good chance to pull off the upset here.
I think you're right, and I'll be honest, we'll talk about this a little later on, but that's really the game I think I'm looking forward to the most there in the first round. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk about some of the dark horses in the field, as well as the top matchups at the first round, as I just mentioned. Maybe we can even get a national championship pick from our panel. Stay tuned right here on The Toss-Up. Welcome back to The Toss-Up. We're going to open up a little bit. We're going to have a little bit of discussion here with the three of you guys. Feel free to chime in at any point in time. Last season, we saw 2 teams that played in the first round go all the way to the national championship. I want to it's a bit of a two-parter. Is there any team from the first round that you could see making the national championship, but who's really a dark horse this season to win it all? We'll start here with you, Brooks.
I think a team, and I mean, Julian, you just talked about it, but Oregon, I think if they're playing in the first round, they can carry that momentum. It hurt them last year when Ohio State had to play in the first round. Oregon was undefeated, Big Ten champion, just waiting for that second round game in the Rose Bowl. And I think playing that first game, it really does help with the momentum and the swing of this new college football playoff era. Oregon, they're a great team, only 1 loss to Indiana. I think their path, if they can go play and beat James Madison, obviously, then they could go play Texas Tech. That'd be a great matchup. And then when you look forward, a potential matchup again, potentially with Indiana, I think it's hard to beat a team twice. Oregon, they are a team who loves that momentum. Dan Lanning's one of the best coaches in all of college football. I think if anybody's poised to make a run from the first round to the national championship game, it's Oregon.
I think when you look at like Indiana, there may be like 2 teams you want to avoid, and I think it's Oregon and Ohio State because it's really hard to beat a team twice, and I wouldn't want to have to do that. And like you said, with Texas Tech, I mean, if they can match up with that defense, be the first time they've seen an offense, they could absolutely get hot, get on a run, beat Indiana, go to the national championship. Ryan?
I wouldn't qualify Oregon as a dark horse because, and that's a testament to their team. They have a great team, very well coached. And if they end up playing Indiana, I think the second matchup, and in all these matchups, I mean, except for the G5 ones, the Ole Miss Tulane game, I think the second matchup in every rematch in all of college football favors the losing team who lost the first game. So again, I don't think it would be any dark horse if Oregon ran the table, but walk with me on the winner of the Texas A&M Miami game. I think we have a lot of potential with both of these teams. Marcel Reed, at his best, would have been invited to New York for the Heisman ceremony. Again, he did not finish the season great. I'm one of his truthers. I think he's a really, really talented player. I think if he comes back for another year next year, I think he'll probably end up winning the Heisman. Excuse me. I think, again, the winner of this game, I think Miami has a defense to compete with anybody. And so if Miami can break the mold, and I have not been a big fan of theirs all season. I do think that, the head-to-head had to matter, and they deserve to be in because they had one of the best wins of the season. But can Carson Beck, do the thing that, I mean, he didn't start in a national championship season at Georgia. So can he right the wrongs that he left in Athens?
I think a really big part before you go, Julian, is there is probably going to be a team that has a bye. I mean, if history repeats itself, that's going to lose. And I'm not saying that I think it could be Ohio State, but like if you match up against a team like Miami or Texas A&M, like that's not maybe a matchup that you necessarily want, Julian.
And I'm going to go ahead and take Miami on this one, only because I do think after watching last year's tournament unfold and seeing all 4 teams that got a bye lose, I think that getting a bye might not be like the kind of advantage that we thought it was in this specific tournament. And I think when you look at Miami's kind of like schedule, they're going to go through a gauntlet. And if they would get to the national championship, it would go through a serious gauntlet of A&M, Ohio State, possibly Georgia. Imagine a Carson Beck versus Georgia game. That would do numbers.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah,
Even, that slipped my mind.
Carson Beck versus Georgia. So, like it would be crazy for the sport. But again, it's really going to tell of how Carson Beck is playing. He's going to be the one that they're going to rely on. If those 2 games, 6 interceptions. That's more than half he has the entire season. He was in the Heisman race up until that Louisville game. And again, if they're on, they're on. And if Carson Beck can get the ball to his receivers, I think Miami can go a long way.
Yeah, I mean, you said it best. When they're on, they're on. They beat Notre Dame in the opening game. They dominate Pittsburgh in the last game. Like, they have the ability to wear a team out. Sticking with these first-round matchups, and Ryan, I do want to start with you. What first-round game are you most excited to sit down and watch?
Even though I absolutely tarnished the kickoff time for A&M Miami, and I feel like that's the only thing that I've talked about in this block, I think that the defenses are going to have, they're going to have their work cut out for them, and you have the dynamicness, if that's even a word, I'm sorry, with Marcel Reed, and then you have the upside of Carson Beck. I just love the defense in this game. I'm really excited.
Yeah, getting to watch Malachi Toney play as well. I feel like he hasn't been mentioned as much as he should be. Julian.
I found a great stat in this before because I want to know who Indiana plays because I'm a big Hoosiers guy, obviously. But this game between Oklahoma and Bama, again, we kind of talked about fortune favors the team that lost in the first time. But I want to introduce a small stat to you guys. Brent Venables, he is 5-0 in rematches. 5-0, and that is not just a Oklahoma thing. That is his entire career. He is 5-0 in rematches. So, again, I think in that Oklahoma-Bama matchup, it's really just going to be, can Ty Simpson control the ball? Can he control the ball throughout the game? Obviously, the A&M Miami game is going to be fireworks because I love those 2 defenses. I think that game is just going to be awesome to watch. But again, this is a classic SEC matchup, a rematch from just a couple weeks ago, and both teams are fighting for something big here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's going to come down to really whoever wants it more. I know you mentioned it's kind of cheesy to say who wins in the trenches, but I mean, that's kind of the definition of it right there. Brooks, who are you most excited to watch in the first round?
Well, I mean, it's really those 2 games that you guys just mentioned, Texas A&M, Miami, and Oklahoma, Alabama. I'm going to say Oklahoma, Alabama, just because the fact that the last 2 times that Alabama and Oklahoma have played, Oklahoma's came out on top, and I feel like I'm speaking for all you guys here, but the past 15, 20 years, it's been all Alabama. Bama's just been one of the most dominant programs in all of college football. Last year in Norman, the Tide did not show up. This year in Tuscaloosa, again, the turnovers that really hurt the Tide, now they have to go back to Norman. I assume it will be a loud environment in the stadium. Oklahoma fans, they love their football. I think the environment and everything going towards the favor of Oklahoma. I love John Mateer, what he's been able to do. He's played in that offense for his entire college career. And I think Oklahoma, having all of those things going their way, I think it'll make everything a lot more difficult for the Crimson Tide, that offense, Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer. I think that is the most daunting first-round matchup. And obviously, both of those 2 teams having to face Indiana or Ohio State. So the winner, it's not like they get an easy game coming in the second round.
Yeah, I think those are really the 2 main games that people are looking at. I'll even up the score. I'll take Texas A&M and Miami. I think those 2 teams, like we've kind of talked about, whoever wins that game could really go on a run and win the national championship. Speaking of the national championship, it's been awesome having you guys here. Before I let you go, I want a national championship game prediction and a winner from all 3 of you. We'll start over with you, Julian.
I mean, there's something you could go with, but I think when it comes down to it, in postseason tournaments like this, it really is, I think defense wins championships, and I think that sticks here as well. And it also, a big part of it is what team is coached the best. And it's going to sound biased, but I have to go with the Hoosiers all the way because, I mean, you're not going to find a better defense besides maybe Ohio State. That's even questionable now that we've seen it. And a better coach team throughout to the entire way to the national championship. I have to go Indiana. I think Oklahoma and Alabama, they win that game, but they're coming right into a red hot Indiana team that is not giving up on any team, not let up at all the entire season. And on the other side, I have to say Georgia. They're just so hot right now. They're such a hot team. Give me Indiana versus Georgia, and then on top, I got to go Hoosiers. Give me Hoosiers.
Brooks.
I think the Big Ten is going to have two teams in the national championship game. I think we're seeing a torch being passed. Now, my prediction, 3 straight Big Ten champions, obviously Michigan in 23, Ohio State in 24. I'm going to say Ohio State goes back-to-back over the Indiana Hoosiers in a rematch of the Big Ten championship game. I say it's close. I say this one is 17-13. I mean, that game that we saw on Saturday, it really could have gone either way, but the Hoosiers, they were the more dominant team. They showed that they were the better coach team down the stretch. I think it's hard to beat a team twice. We've said it all episode, but I think Ohio State gets it done. They're the best 2 teams in the country. They're ranked the best 2 teams in the country. You look at every single metric, and they're pretty much top 2 in the country. That is my national championship, and I say the Big Ten is still on top.
I mean, you've had the last 2 champions come from the Big Ten. If there are 2 Big Ten teams in it this year, the offseason will be unbelievable with conversations between SEC and Big Ten. Ryan, we'll close it out with you. Who is going to the national championship and who's going to win it?
I will stick with Julian here. I like Georgia and Indiana. And, right now, I will say Georgia. But once we have to, we get to normalize ourselves to saying Indiana is playing for a national championship, I think everybody will be like, there's no way they lose now. There's no way that this is all for nothing. And it won't be for nothing. But again, you might as well go win it. And so right now I'll say Georgia beats Indiana in Miami. But when or if they get there, you will not hear me say otherwise. I think Indiana will eventually maybe get there. So
I'm going to stick with that side, but I am going to ride with you, Julian. I think it's going to be Indiana, Georgia. I think Indiana is going to win. Fernando Mendoza from Miami wins it in his hometown. That's going to do it for our show tonight. Thank you all so much for watching, but we want to hear from you. So be sure to continue the discussion and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at IUSTV Sports. With that, there's only one thing left to do. So toss it up, see if you catch it. See you next week.